So it was a really, really hot day. And you can believe that because I'm in Dallas, right? And I was running between appointments. And I was looking for a woman named Karen who I had never met before. And I ran into one of my favorite cafes, La Madeleine, and I found Karen. And I sat down with her and I said, "Hey, Karen, please excuse me. I'm not that ready for our meeting today. I did print your resume, but I left it back on the printer at my desk, and I neglected to look at your LinkedIn profile." I said, "Karen, tell me about yourself." And Karen said, "Paula, I am the vice president of marketing for Mary Kay Cosmetics, and I've been there in marketing for 18 years. And Karen said, "In those 18 years, I have done everything in marketing." She said, "You know, Mary Kay, I've done events, big global events." She said, "I've also done collateral, and I've done advertising. And I have worked online at places like Pinterest and Facebook, and I've worked offline with public relations." And I'm not advancing this, excuse me, it's not allowing me to advance. Let's see. All right, we'll do it the hard way. And Karen's saying, "And I've worked with our executives on issues around crisis communications. And I've worked with our sales force on selling presentations. And I've worked with manufacturing and product development on color theory." And Karen's going on and on and on and on. And I'm hearing, "So what? So what?" And I'm hearing "so what" because I ask you, you're all executives, who rises to the position of a vice president in any function and who has been in a company for 18 years and who works for a global company like Mary Kay, who hasn't done all the tactical work to get them to that position. Of course, she's done advertising and public relations and crisis communications, and she's worked online and offline. Yeah, of course. So I've said to her, "Karen, stop for a moment." I said, "Only because I'm here in Dallas with the Mary Kay headquarters, I've got to tell you, it looks a little differently to me than it has. Talk to me about that." And Karen said, "Well, thank you for noticing, Paula. You are looking at our refreshed brand." And I said, "Okay, now that's interesting." I said, "Tell me about that." And she said, "Well, about 20 months ago, the leadership team, and I am a part of that, we went off-site to a woods weekend. And in that woods weekend, we were inventing the company for 10 years into the future. And when we left, we all took away an assignment. My assignment was brand." And I said, "Well, that's interesting. So what'd you do?" She said, "Well, first of all, I did not hire a marketing company." She said, "Myself and my two colleagues, we self-taught ourselves about what branding really is. We talked to people, we went to seminars, we did best practices work, we did case studies, we read case studies. So we did it ourselves." And I said, "And then go on." And she said, "And it really worked." She said, "We did pre and post brand research, and those attributes of the Mary Kay brand that we wanted to move toward the background, the puffy-haired white old lady, white-haired old lady, we moved to the background. That worked. Those things that we wanted to move to the foreground, like being an international company, it worked. And so I am happy with that," she said. "We did it on time and on budget." So now this interests me. This is what I've learned about Karen. I found out that Karen learned what brand marketing was. She moved the needle, and she had her fingerprints all over a successful brand. And I said to her, "Karen, if I've heard you properly, you revitalize tired brands." And Karen had a light bulb moment. "Well, Paula, I can say that I revitalize tired brands." And therein is the art of hello. So let's talk about this a little further. I am going to introduce you to 7 friends of mine today. Karen is the first. Each of them have come to introduce themselves with a succinct art of hello introduction. I revitalize tired brands, rather than I do this and 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 I do this, and it gets my so what counter going in my mind. And in this case, I call them archetypes. They're at the bottom of your screen. The archetype that Karen is using here is the biggest, baddest thing I've ever done. Because in her career, she has done all that excellent tactical work. But the biggest, baddest thing she ever had done in her career to that point was to revitalize that tired Mary Kay brand. And that I call the art of hello. Let me introduce myself. My name is Paula Calise. I'm an executive recruiter, and I fill hard to fill positions. If there's nothing else that you remember about me today, that's really all I want you to remember about me. Paula Calise fills hard to fill positions. And I've been saying that about myself since I founded this company just over 15 years ago. And my brand is so succinct, filling hard to fill positions, so well known in my circles that I have not made a sales call to grow my business in at least 10 years. Because the benefit that I have from having an easy to remember, easy to repeat, succinct, brief art of hello introduction, I fill hard to fill positions, is that my network is really my latent sales force. And maybe by the end of today, you'll join my network and join my latent sales force. And the next time you meet somebody who's pulling their hair out, trying to fill a job that's difficult, you'll say, hey, this is what Paula Calise does. She fills hard to fill positions. And that's a big, big benefit. One of the big benefits is being remembered and able to be repeated, and people can act in your behalf when you're not in the room with them. So now you know 2 people who have art of hello introductions. Karen, I revitalize tired brands. Paula, I fill hard to fill positions. Let me introduce you to my next friend. But before I do, let me speak for just one moment, if I can. Zoe, I'd like people to ask questions via chat today. And if you would monitor the chat, and every couple minutes I could ask if there's something new, okay? So sure. Please, if any of you have a comment or a question, throw it in chat, and Zoe and I will stop along the way, okay? Let me introduce you to another friend of mine. Her name is Shauna Black. I met Shauna at least 12 years ago at a meet and greet cocktail party. I shake her hand, I tell her who I am, she shakes my hand, tells me who she is. And then for some reason or another, even though I think we kind of run in the same circles, I have not seen Shauna in many, many years. And it was the summer before COVID. So what's that, summer 19? I am at a meeting at the University of Texas at Dallas in the audience, and Shauna is at the lectern and she's introducing the speaker, not herself, but the speaker. And I thought, I know her. And so after the meeting, I went up to her and I shook her hand. I told her who I was. And I said, Shauna, I know you. I said, you help manufacturing plants become LEED certified, LEED being green. And Shauna goes, well, Paula, we haven't seen each other in a really long time. How did you remember that? And I said to her, Shauna, you were the first, last, and only person I have ever met that said, I help manufacturing plants become LEED certified. It was impactful, it was memorable, and I have never forgotten it. Shauna was happily impressed. The archetype here is my newest accomplishment, because when I met Shauna all those years ago, what she did not say to me was this: hi, my name is Shauna Black. I'm recently transitioned from Texas Instrument, where I was there for 23 years. I raised to the rank of a vice president. I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. And in my last assignment, I worked all over the world, helping all of our plants become LEED certified, blah, 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 blah. I guarantee you, had that been her introduction, it would have been in one ear, out the other. I don't have the capacity to know all that stuff over someone that I've just met. But when she said, I'm Shauna Black, I help manufacturing plants become LEED certified, you betcha I remembered that. Like I said, first, last, only person that's ever said that to me. Yay. It was at that time her newest accomplishment. You now know 3 people who have Art of Hello, brief, memorable introductions. You know Karen, I revitalize tired brands. You know Paula, I fill hard to fill positions. And you now know Shauna, I help manufacturing plants become LEED certified. So what is the Art of Hello? The Art of Hello is the distillation of your professional life. It is not everything you've ever done. It is not every major accomplishment. It is not every credential or degree. It is the distillation of your professional life. And as importantly, I should put this on the slide, how you want to be known now. It may not be lifelong and permanent because you could change occupations over time. And at that time, you change what you say about yourself. But for a while, you use what is here. It's meaningful, it's authentic, it's unambiguous. When I say I fill hard to fill positions, you don't think that, well, maybe she's a bricklayer. I mean, it's probably pretty clear that I do something in recruiting or jobs or, right? It can differentiate you. I do this in front of audiences inside of companies all the time. And a lot of times people either have the exact same job and profession, or they share that job and profession with others in their industry. But in all the time I've been doing this, I've never found a single person who says the exact same thing about themselves, because they have different experiences, they have different successes, they come from different points of view. And so it really can differentiate yourself even in your industry and in your profession. And the beauty of this is, done right, it's memorable. When you meet somebody, you really have sincerely the opportunity for them to know you and remember you. At the bottom, done right, your Art of Hello introduction is your brand promise. Now, isn't that interesting? It not only introduces you, it not only differentiates you, it's not only memorable, but it's your brand promise. That's a lot of work on the back of a few words, right? Done right. Now let's look at the brand promise. We had Karen, I revitalize tired brands for my employer. That's her brand promise, right? When people meet me, I fill hard to fill positions for my next client. It's my promise. When Shauna Black says, I help manufacturing plants become LEED certified, that's her promise to those manufacturing plant managers. So done right, your Art of Hello introduction just has so many good uses. And in this case, it is your brand promise. Okay, I usually get a comment or a discomfort at that point. Zoe, do we have anything in chat that I should address now?
I had a question from Charlie Timmons, and it is, what is the biggest challenge that those in transition have with formulating their pitch or introduction?
Choosing one. Okay, when we're in transition, we want to say, listen, I'm a CPA and an accountant. I can work for anybody, right? I'm trained to work for anybody. And so your tendency is to say, I'm an expert in accounts payable and accounts receivable and closing the books and general ledger and working with the auditors, right? You want to cover all the bases. I'll show you how to do that, but I will tell you, if you're in transition, chances are the hardest thing for you to do will be edit this down and then go after jobs where it's a really good match for who you are. Okay, maybe we can come back to that. All right, this is a concern that I hear at this point. Hey, Paula, people raise their hands. Hey, I'm more than a one-liner. I've been working for 20 years. I've been working for 30 years. I've been working for 40 years. I have a master's degree. I have credentials. I'm more than a one-liner. And you know what? I totally agree with you. And this is the solution. Your art of hello introduction is just the jumping off point for people to know you and just the jumping off point of your professional brand. Down there, it says pillars, fill out your story. And pillars are all the other pieces of information that delivered at the right time help somebody know more about you. So let's use me as an example. I am an executive recruiter. I feel hard to fill positions. But when I am talking to a hiring manager, and let's say that's Ford, I'm going to help you fill this job the way you would yourself if you had the time. Because as a hiring manager, every hiring manager is always strapped for time. So yes, my top line continues to be my art of hello. I feel hard to fill positions, but when I'm talking to a hiring manager, I have something additional to tell them about myself. I save you time. But Ken, for example, he's the vice president of human resources or vice president of talent and recruiting. I'll say something different to Ken. I'll say, Ken, as I'm helping Ford fill this position, I want to tell you I'm going to follow all the practices and procedures of your internal hiring process. And why do I say that? Because as a vice president of human resources, the last thing you want is somebody out there running amok and doing things outside of the processes that you have for successful hiring in your own company. So I have about 6 or 8 of these all ready to go to either direct it to the audience or to broaden the conversation and turn a monologue into a dialogue. For example, I feel hard to fill positions. I want to tell you, I already know the question is going to come up. Well, Paula, what's a hard to fill position? People want to know how I define that, right? I have an answer for that. I know the question's coming. So I have a pillar already planned and I have it memorized and I can get it out in a moment's notice. So this is where I suggest maybe if you're a job seeker, you still say something concise and brief about yourself, but you say, in the course of being in accountancy for the last 20 years, I have experience in this, this, and this. Not 20 things, choose the top 3 or 4. So back to the question that was asked by Charles, what's the most difficult thing, is to not let yourself talk too much, to come up with a good, concise art of hello introduction, and then all those things that you would like people to know more about, create distinct pillars, memorize those pillars, and bring them out in the conversation as your conversation is developing. Got it? Does this make sense for anybody? Boy, I wish I could see everyone's head go like this. I wouldn't be so lonely. Okay. Oh, good, Ford. Thank you. You know what I do when people participate with me in person? I give them a Starbucks gift certificate. Here, go buy a cup of coffee on me. So in practice, Ford, you and I are having coffee together. All right.
You got it.
So that is what the art of hello is about. Now, I'd like to introduce you to another friend of mine. Her name is Jennifer. Unlike the people that you just met, Karen, Paula, Shauna, we're all advanced in our careers. We've been doing this a long time. But what if you are not so advanced in your careers? Does this still work? Yes. Let me tell you about young Jennifer. So I am on a couple of committees and boards at Southern Methodist University, SMU, which is here in our town. And I was at a function for EMBAs. And EMBAs, are executive MBAs. They go to school at night and weekend and they work full-time during the day. And so I'm at like a cocktail-like reception. I introduced myself to an EMBA. Her name is Jennifer. She's wearing her name tag. And I said, Jennifer, when you're not studying, what do you do? And here's young Jennifer. Well, Paula, looking at her feet, well, Paula, she said, I have a boring job. I'm a water engineer. Okay, you don't start with that. Oh, I have a boring job. And she tells me that she's a water engineer. And I would say Jennifer's 25, 6 years old, 3, 4 years out of undergraduate school, right? And I think a water engineer, I have placed a lot of people in my day, even engineers, but I've never dealt with a water engineer. I wonder what that means. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, I bet, I get it. They probably design the flushing systems in tall buildings. I don't know, maybe, good guess. So I said to her, well, Jennifer, I don't know too much about that. What do you do? So second time I asked her. And she said, well, Paula, I work for the towns of Addison and Midlothian, and I work for the city of Denton, and I work for Richardson, and I work for Plano. And she's going on and naming all the towns and cities that surround the core of Dallas. I said, well, that's interesting that you work for all those cities. What do you do? Third time I asked. And she says, well, I work with their data. She says, I work with climate and rainfall and microclimate and land use and population growth and trends and water runoff and parks per capita. And she's going on and on. I mean, it sounds like a census study, right? So, okay, you work with all this data, you work with all these towns, but I don't get it. Jennifer, what do you do? Fourth time I asked. And she says, looking at her feet, she says, Paula, I write their 30-year water plans so none of those towns and cities run out of water and they can continue to grow. This is not boring work. For those of us who live in North Texas, that's the young lady that keeps us in showers and in iced tea. I love this gal. So I said to her, Jennifer, if I've heard you right, you're an economic development professional. I keep North Texans in water for decades to come. And you know what young Jennifer says to me? Can I say that? I said, yes, Jennifer, you can. Because the archetype here is my work in a bigger context. Is she a water engineer? Yes. Is she writing 30-year water studies? Yes. But the real impact of her work is that of an economic development professional. She keeps North Texans in water for decades to come. So that is yet another way to think about your own introduction. If you do detailed work, if you are an engineer, if you are an IT developer, if you are an actuary, or any of these professions where the detail work is important, then maybe it's not the detail work, it's the impact of that work. And in a bigger context, that might be a great way to introduce yourself in such a way that you will be remembered. Fair enough? Let's see what the art of hello is not. It is not an advertisement for your employer. Unless you are the paid spokesperson for that employer, that's not where to start. And I'll tell you what it sounds like when it's wrong. Hi, my name is Randy. I work for AT&T. AT&T is in 134 countries in the world with 450,000 employees. We have 5G technology, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Randy, I pay my AT&T bills. I know who they are. So it is not an advertisement for your employer. Now, I will tell you this. If you have a very prestigious employer, if you do work for AT&T, high prestige employer, it could very well be one of your pillars. So you introduce yourself on your Art of Hello introduction, and then you come back with, at the right time, as you are building rapport, and say, I'm very pleased to be working with AT&T because of the opportunities or because of the services we provide, or whatever you want to say. So I'm not saying that you have to erase your employer, but I'm saying you don't lead with it. It is not bragging. There are two really good reasons why it's not bragging. First of all, it's truthful and authentic. And if it's not truthful and authentic, people will see through that. We'll look at an example coming up. But the second and the more important reason is it's not about yourself. It's what you do for other people, right? When Karen says, I revitalize tired brands, that's for other people. When young Jennifer says, I'm an economic development professional, I work for cities helping them with their 10-year water plan. So it's not what you get. It's not who you are. It's not bragging. Bragging gives you the gag complex. You know, it gives you that gag. Let me show you what bragging looks like. Hey, you guys, my name is Paula Calise. My company is Linked Executive Search. You can find Linked Executive Search very easily. We've been on the Forbes top 10 or top 20 list of best recruiting companies in the United States for years. And if you don't believe me, next time you're in Dallas, come on over and I'll show you my Maserati. Right? That's crazy. That's bragging. That gives you the gag thing going, right? And you hear it when you know someone's bragging. This is not that. It is not everything you've ever accomplished, but those pillars can be those accomplishments. They can tell someone about your advanced degree. They can tell someone about the successes you've had. So although the art of hello is short, right? All those pillars allow you to fill in the gaps. So it's not just a one-liner. It is not lifelong and permanent. So when Shauna and Black and I got reacquainted that summer of 2019, we had coffee afterward, and she said, you know, Paula, my business practice has really developed. What I do in lead certification is really a small amount now. I need to reintroduce myself in a different way. And she and I worked on that. And actually, Ken said he's reading the book. He'll see Shauna 2.0 in the book and what Shauna's come up with. It is not something that's just wrong. I hate that, wrong. So I'm in LinkedIn a week or two ago, and it has a woman's picture and her name, and it says small business owner. And when I look down, her employer for 15 years is PepsiCo, $80 billion PepsiCo. She's not a small business owner. That's simply ridiculous. Now, I think it's cool that she feels like she has some control of the little world that she does there, maybe her clients or whatever, and she feels she's a small business owner, but it's wrong. Don't be goofy like that. And in my opinion, it is something that your career cannot afford to be without. Why are you investing as much as you are and do in your career without having a way to introduce yourself in such a way that you'll be remembered? And it is not the old-fashioned elevator speech or its crazy friend, the 30-second drill. Has anybody been teaching you about the elevator speech and the 30-second drill? I've got an example of it here. Let me find it. Oh my gosh, I have a lot of paper. Here it is. I went to a meeting a couple of years ago, and everybody went around the room and they were told to create a 30-second drill or an elevator speech. And each of them did so with differing successes. And there was this one woman, it was like she came out of Hollywood. Hers was perfect, at least in its delivery. She delivered it perfectly. And I'm going to share it with you now. She said, I'm a senior manager in commercial insurance with a focus in multi-state workers' comp claim programs and risk consulting. I drive profitability and compliance via accountability, responsibility, and flexibility. I thrive in creating environments that are diverse, inclusive, and even a little fun. I'm a dynamic, principled, inclusive leader who builds teams and creates cultures of success where individual skills are developed, providing an exceptional customer experience. I meet or exceed company goals. I accomplish company goals. I have personal development, and I meet or exceed customer expectations. 88 words. And it fits into 30 seconds. But it's not good. Wah, 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 right? Charlie Brown, right? Wah, 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 wah. I spent about 10 minutes with her, and this is what we landed on. Through workers' comp insurance, I return injured workers to work faster. Boom, that one works. In workers' comp insurance, I return injured workers to work faster. But if you have suffered over creating an elevator speech or a 30-second drill, I got good news for you. You don't have to rip it up and throw it away. Each of these sentences can be a pillar. When it's appropriate and she's talking to somebody and she wants to share something, she can say, I'm a leader that believes in inclusiveness and diversity and even a little fun. That's a beautiful pillar. It just doesn't work all put together in 88 words because it makes her forgettable instead of memorable. Okay, I see a few little things in chat. So you want to help me and see what kind of questions we have?
Sure. So we have a question from Charlie. How do you suggest people use their art of hello in the various social media platforms? And Ken said, to piggyback on Charlie's question, how about in your resume summary?
Okay. Love it, love it, love it, and love it. Thank you. You guys give me softballs. So first of all, let's take LinkedIn, because those of us who are professionals, other than our personal life, which I believe belongs in other venues, but LinkedIn is where our professional life is. I believe it should be next to your picture, next to your name, and use your art of hello introduction. Then the beauty of how LinkedIn is formatted, you have a profile after that, and it has 2,000 characters. For the most part, you can put in every single one of your pillars, all of them. You don't even have to be selective. I feel hard to fill positions. I help managers save time. I help HR executives fulfill the obligations of their processes, and so on and so forth. So that is the perfect venue for it. As for your resume, why not make it the first sentence of your resume, the headline of your resume? If you're talking about yourself properly, yes. If you're in business and you have a business website that has a profile, a bio, it should be in your bio. If you have other social media, you can put it all in your, you put it in your profile everywhere you go. I have my own business, so my boss, she allows me to put it in my signature block. Of course, I want it in my signature block. I want it seen every time someone gets email from me. I haven't used one in a long, long time, but I have it on my business card, of course, right? So everywhere that you are seen as a professional is where you want to use your art of hello introduction. Absolutely. So that was one of the questions. Zoe, what was the other question?
I think you answered both, because Ken's was about where to put it on the resume. So you.
Okay, good.
Yep.
It was a double dip. Okay. Let me introduce you to another friend of mine. His name is John. I met John at a meeting. I went up and introduced myself, and I said, John, what is it that you do? And he said, Paula, I'm a corporate real estate guy. Well, that wasn't a lot of information, because I figured out he was a guy when I saw him. In the corporate real estate, that's an entire industry. I don't know what you do. That's an industry. And so I said to him, John, as a corporate real estate guy, would you share with me something that's a point of pride, something that you're really proud of during your career? And he thought for it, and he said, yeah. He said, Paula, when I worked at Starbucks and I was on the road looking for new Starbucks sites, it became late afternoon and I was on the highway and I really could use a cup of coffee. I just needed a little jolt. So he said, I got off the highway and I drove around and I couldn't find anywhere to get a cup of coffee, but I did find a McDonald's, and I drove through the McDonald's drive-through, got the coffee, got back on the highway and took a sip, and he go, oh, yuck, this is something brewed this morning. Now, let me protect McDonald's here. This is before Mac Cafe, okay? This is a while back. And because Mac Cafe, they do terrific coffee now. And so he said, well, you know what? This is interesting. This is not a good cup of coffee. I wanted a good cup of coffee. We at Starbucks could do better. And so he goes back to his office And he works with the marketing people and the finance people, and he brings together a business case for creating drive-throughs at Starbucks for the first time ever. And his management leadership team shut it down. Absolutely not. We need people to come into the store, to hear the coffee being ground, to talk to the barista, to notice that there's a live edge on our counters, that our furniture is real leather. That's part of the experience of a Starbucks experience. No, we can't do drive-through. And John kind of wears them down. He makes one proposal after another, tweaks it, and finally said, "Fine, you convinced us. Try it in 6 places." So he retrofits, or the team retrofits 6 restaurants, 6 Starbucks with drive-throughs where it's most appropriate, easy on, easy off, traffic, and so on. And what do they find after month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4? Every single store, all 6 of them, every single month, their revenues are up more than 10%. And they're all in double digit. Well, has anybody ever worked in retail? That is golden, right? That drops to the bottom line. All your fixed expenses are already there. So he proves the concept. I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, but I've used Starbucks drive-through. We have this man, John, to thank for it. So I said to him, "John, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing." And he said, "Well, Paula, you don't mind? I have one more I could talk to you about." And I said, "Absolutely, tell me." He said, "Well, when I worked for Nike," and he said, "This was a while back." He said, "This is in the very late 1990s, early 2000s. He said, "I found myself in Times Square in New York." And he said, "It's not the Times Square that we know now." He said, "It was really a little bit run down." He said, "There was a little graffiti and some trash around." And he said, "I looked around and all these beautiful, iconic buildings were empty or partially empty, partially empty." And right there, he got an idea. He goes back to his office. He gets the finance people, the marketing people. He makes a proposal. We know this story. He's good at this, right? And what he has envisioned was taking a lot of stories of these iconic buildings, 5, 6, 7 stories, and selling their Nike merchandise and putting in a juice bar, and selling the Nike merchandise and putting in a handball court, and selling the Nike merchandise and putting in a basketball court. Well, this guy was ahead of his time, because today you and I call this experiential retail, but back then there was no word for this. And he goes in, he tries to sell this concept of this big thing that he called Nike Town. And he was shot down. "No, it's not going to work. It's too expensive. We don't want it." And he wears them down. Finally, his leadership says, "Fine, do it once, but maybe do it somewhere where if it doesn't work very well, we don't have egg on our face." And I don't remember really what John told me about where he located it. Somewhere in Asia, maybe it was Tokyo, maybe it was Singapore, something along those lines. And what happened? Well, the day it opens, there was a line around the block. People, they had done their marketing. People wanted to get in and participate and feel what it was like to be in Nike Town. But even better, the international trade press picked it up, and it was a sensation. John said in the time that he was there, they opened 6 of these mega stores around the world. Wow. I said to him, "John, if I've heard you correctly, in commercial real estate, you are a billion-dollar brand builder on the back of old-fashioned brick and mortar retail." I love this one, right? If you're into alliteration, you've got billion, builder, back, brick. So alliteration is always good for memory. But it also has an interesting social commentary here. Listen, we're talking Starbucks, we're talking Nike. These are some of the quintessential best brands in the world. But in the time of the online world of Amazon and online shopping, brick and mortar retail is a little old-fashioned. And so I like the social commentary in this one as well. The archetype here is the results of what I do. When John takes on a job, and his job is just to pick out locations, honestly, but he has made it so much more. He's an innovative guy. He's an entrepreneur. the results of what I do. I'm a $1 billion brand builder. I love this. And I just appreciate John sharing that story with me that day that I met him. So here's what I'm going to ask all of you. Spend 10 minutes, spend an hour. Because once you land on a great art of hello introduction of your own, you will use it a million times. The ROI on it is enormous. For the last 15 years, I've been saying, I feel hard to fill positions. And let me tell you how this has worked out for me. I told you I don't make any sales calls. I am on Central Expressway here in Dallas. And I'm in my car and my phone rings, my Bluetooth opens up, it opens up on the speakers in the car. And I say, hello, this is Paula. And I hear this. Hello, Paula. My name is Cliff Oram. I'm calling from Costa Rica. I understand you feel hard to fill positions, and I'd like to talk to you about a hard to fill position that I have. You guys, I had to get off the highway. Not only did he call me from Costa Rica, I don't know this man, but he used my exact verbatim introduction in the call to me. Paula, I hear you feel hard to fill positions, and I have a hard to fill position to fill. Wow, that's the benefit. I told you, you have a latent population of people who can represent you when you're not there. I did spend a little time and kind of figured out who introduced him and how I knew and so forth. It was a lot of fun. So I suggest you do this because the ROI is fantastic. Let me introduce you to another friend. His name is Mike. I'm in a meeting. I sit down next to this man named Mike. I introduce myself and he says, Paula, my name is Mike. I'm a financial planner and I help put people over their financial finish lines. Ooh, kind of cool, huh? You get that impression of sports. If you're swimming, you're touching the wall. If you're running, you're breaking the beam. I like that. So I go to coffee with Mike and I pull out my tablet and I said, hey, Mike, as a way to get to know you, could you give me some examples of clients that you have that really like your work enough that they will recommend you and refer you? And he told me 6 stories. We don't have time for all 6 stories today, but let me give you one of them. He said, about a year ago, little over a year ago, Paula, I met this woman. She's a recently retired grade school teacher. She's taught 2nd grade for 40 years. And she came to me just after Christmas and she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She said that I'm concerned that I will have to live this very tiny life. She says, I have a small pension and my Social Security, but I don't have enough money to really, feel like I'm living a good retirement. She said, Christmas just passed. I did not go and visit my daughter and my grandchildren because I didn't feel as I had the money for airfare, and I didn't even buy them presents. She said, I just took a $10 bill and put it in a Christmas card and sent it off to them. And he worked with her over the course of that year, helping her understand what she had, how she could spend it, what was usable, and so on and so forth. And after the following Christmas, she comes into his office and she hugs him and she said, you changed my life. I mean, it makes me verklempt talking about this story. And she said, because of you, I went and visited my daughter and my grandchildren this year and I brought them presents. I mean, it's such a lovely and touching story. He had 6 stories like this to share with me of a man who had daughters that were about to enter college and he was nervous because he hadn't saved enough money for them. About a couple that had very different beliefs and thoughts about what investing and savings was. About a young person who wanted to start their savings life but also needed a car, and so on and so forth. And he tells me all of these stories, and not one time in all 6 stories did anybody get over their financial finish lines. Not one of them bought a condo overlooking the ocean in Maui. Not one of them retired at 50. Not one of them bought a classic car from Jay Leno. No. What I did learn from him from these 6 stories is that he helped his clients become comfortable and confident in their financial futures. You see, Mike has that he has good listening skills. He's empathetic. He's trustworthy. And people become comfortable and confident in their financial futures through Mike's counsel. This financial finish line thing was just a tagline. It was disingenuous, and it didn't take me 10 minutes to see through that. But this is the essence of who Mike is. If he weren't a financial analyst, a financial counselor, he would have been a great member of the ministry. He would have been a great nurse, right? He would have been a great career coach, like some of you guys are, because he had a great amount of empathy. He listened well, and he brought people through the issues till they became comfortable and confident. This goes to the fact that it has to be authentic. If your Art of Hello introduction is not authentic, it will be seen through. It only took me a couple minutes to figure out that that wasn't right. I'm introducing you to another friend of mine. This is Bill Wallace. Bill Wallace, for 30 years here in Dallas, has said, I introduce the right people for the right reasons at the right time. You see, of Bill's careers, he's really well known for something called Success North Dallas. Success North Dallas, it takes 200 to 300 people every third Wednesday of every month at Prestonwood Country Club. He brings great speakers to the lectern. And what Bill does is he learns everybody's name and profession in the room, and he is a matchmaker. He is the most well-connected person I know. He is the best matchmaker of anyone I've ever known. Here is the proof. So I'm doing this inside a company, the company Epsilon. You might know Epsilon's a global company in marketing, maybe the biggest marketing company in the world. And there's a woman in the audience that day that we were doing this together. Her name is Catherine. Catherine calls me 2 or 3 weeks after the presentation, and she says, hey, Paula, guess who I met? I don't know, who'd you meet? She goes, I met Bill Wallace. I said, great. She said, let me tell you how this happened. She said, I was in a meeting. I had my back to this man, and he says, I introduced the right people for the right reasons at the right time. She swings around, looks him in the eye, pokes him in the necktie and says, hey, Bill, you're Bill Wallace. She said, I know you. Paula Calise told me you'd say that about yourself. And here's Bill going, yeah, Paula's my friend. Why are you poking me in the necktie? But you don't even have to look at somebody to know when their brand shines through. This is Bill Wallace. I introduce the right people for the right reasons at the right time. This archetype is my repeated successes. Bill has done this thousands of times. That is his repeated successes. So in your life, in your career, if you have repeated successes, this might be the way you introduce yourself. That is mine. I help fill hard to fill positions 600 times. So that's repeated successes. I have one last friend to introduce you to, and then we'll move on. And her name is Christina. So I'm doing this program in 2 hours. The first hour, we did everything that we're doing here today. The second, maybe 45 minutes, we stayed for a workshop, and we gathered 2 people at a time to work on their Art of Hello introduction. And I look at this woman, Christina, and she's just shaking her head. She's just not buying it. So I sat down, I said, Christina, this is not comfortable for you. What's the problem here? And she said, Paula, what I do puts food on the table, but it's not my passion. Okay. And I don't want to be known by just what I do. Okay. So this is what I learned about young Christina, probably maximum a 30-year-old woman. By day, I sell cloud technology, and by heart, I advocate for organ donation. Because here's this absolutely lovely young woman, and for the most altruistic reasons, she donates one of her kidneys so that someone else can live a proper life. How lovely is that? The archetype here is my aspiration. So if you have 2 things in your life that are important, and one is your aspiration, then we should have a way to honor that. And you do it with 2 short sentences. By day, I sell cloud technology, and by heart, I advocate for organ donation. Okay, this is the way I teach, for example, MBA students. I teach at SMU with both MBA students. I'm looking for something here, see if I can find one. I don't see the other one I'm looking for. And law school students. And a lot of times for them, they have to acknowledge I'm a Cox MBA student today, and the and is either the profession that they're going to return to, the profession they want to have, or their aspiration for having accomplished that law degree or MBA. So this is a very durable, very useful archetype if it's the right one for you. What are the skippable mistakes? The list method. We heard that right off the bat from Karen. I do this and 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 I do this. So what? Right? Chronological. Oh, please don't do this. I started working in 2001, and in 2004, I went to the so-and-so company. 2006, I got promoted to the so-and-so. In 2009, I did this. Get it. That's what your LinkedIn profile is for. That's what your resume is for. Nobody wants to hear that. MBA speak. This is the most prevalent mistake I hear. And that is, you know, we're smart. We want to sound smart. And so we take all the big words that we know and put them into one sentence. And here are actual examples. I'm not smart enough to make up this stuff. Let me give you this one MBA speak. I help clients align their strategies, business models, and operating models to achieve competitive advantage and achieve competitive growth or corporate growth, profitability, and performance goals. I help clients align their strategies, business models, and operating models to achieve competitive advantage and achieve corporate growth, profitability, and performance goals. What do you guys think that is? What do you think that person does? Oh, I'll give you 400 or 500 guesses. You're not going to get it. I'm working with him for not but 5 minutes. Here's what we came up with. This person's in marketing. I help small brands tell big stories. I help small brands tell big stories. Align strategies, business, blah, 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 blah. You know, that's just the MBA speak. That's just somebody wanting to sound smart. How about this one? I help companies free up resources by leveraging technology to enhance operational efficiencies by maximizing productivity and drive cost savings to the bottom line. I don't have a clue what that is, right? Working with this person 5 minutes. I'm your friend in the printing business. This guy, I help companies free up resources, leveraging technology, operating efficiency, maximize productivity, drive cost. He is a small business owner. He owns a print shop. I'm your friend in the printing business. So guys, if you have something to say that can be said simply, put away the MBA speak. Your job title is another mistake. You heard this from, oh no, this is where I hear this all the time and it's scary. I'm a project manager. Oh my God. Okay, so in LinkedIn on the day I checked this, in the United States, name, title, and the title is project manager, 9,800,000. You might as well say I breathe. Okay, every industry, every profession has somebody called sales rep, sales executive, a product manager, all these generic titles, you and everybody else. So try to come up with something that's more meaningful to your successes. Your degree name, that was young Jennifer, right? I have a boring job, I'm a water engineer. Yikes, forget it. That degree was conferred upon her 5 years earlier at Texas A&M University. Put it aside, it's on, an inconsistency. Anybody who tells you that they work with any kind of branding will tell you the death of the brand is inconsistency. So say the same thing, write the same thing, show the world the same thing over and over and over again. Here's why I recommend it for career advancements and for job seekers. First of all, it has the opportunity done right if you're in a job search to inform what target market you should be searching in. And I will give you an example. First person you met was Karen. We came up with I Revitalize Tired Brands, right? What I didn't tell you is I met Karen in 2008. She was the vice president of marketing for Mary Kay Cosmetics, but she would have that job for 1 more week. She was being laid off. And she was about to go into a very crowded job market with very few jobs and a lot of other people with her skills saying, I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this, forget about it. Once we landed on I Revitalize Tired Brands, the rest of the time that Karen and I worked together, we said, hey, in Dallas, who are all the tired brands? Those are the people that need you. Those are the people that you can bring real value to. it identified a number of companies that became her job search target. Wow, that's great. It demonstrates conscious competence. I meet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, both of the committee work I do, the boards that I'm on, my civic work, my job where I interview people all day long. Very, very, very few people. If you know how to introduce yourself well, you will be in the vast minority, and it shows that you have a level of confidence and competence about who you are. It prepares you for that awful thing called tell me about yourself. So I'm doing this in another job support group here in Dallas, and a man comes up to me afterward and he said, Paula, had I only known you 3 weeks ago, this would have saved me. And I said, what's the story? And he says, I've been out of work for a year. He said, about 3 weeks ago, I went into an interview for the perfect job. I would have done very well there. They would have been satisfied with my work, beyond satisfied. He said, but what changed was when I went in for the interview, I thought I'd be meeting with the hiring manager, but instead it was a panel of 3 people. And he said, it kind of put me off my game. And he said, the first question they said is, tell me about yourself. Well, I wasn't prepared. He said, had I known what my art of hello introduction was and my pillars, he said, I could be working there today. Oh my gosh, just take the knife out of my heart, right? Success pillars are ready for many or any conversations. This is an interesting thing. If you identify yourself perhaps as an introvert, you hate these things. You hate interviews. You hate going to social gatherings where people are going to, say, well, what do you do? This has you prepared. You are armed for bear. You never have to be worried that you won't know how to start a conversation about yourself when the opportunity arises. So this is just a great, great tool. Zoe, do we have a really quick poll that we can take?
Sure.
And then after the poll, we'll ask further questions. I see a few more in chat. So the people you meet, how many do you think have memorable introductions? 95% of you said a few. I have done this poll with 2,000 or 3,000 people, and everybody agrees with you. Very few people feel that a lot of people know how to introduce themselves. Would you like one of these for yourself? Oh my God, you are now my favorite group ever. Everybody said yes, they would like that. Thank you for that. And then this one is usually, this is interesting. This is usually 5 to 7, 7 to 10 is usually almost perfectly 50-50. And I will tell you, more than 10 words, it might be a nice to have in terms of describing yourself. But the problem with having more than 10 words is people are unlikely to be able to introduce you verbatim the way you introduce yourself. So the brevity of 5 to 7 or 7 to 10 at the most really gets you the most mileage. So done. Thank you for that. Let's ask those last questions in chat.
So it was a couple people commenting or having a question about the example you gave with Bill Wallace's message. So Ford was kind of wondering, it doesn't seem to reference the ultimate benefit to others. He makes all these connections, but to what end? And then we had someone else agreeing.
You know what I love about that? That's okay. Because if he says, I connect the right people at the right time for the right reasons, if he's in a conversation and someone says, why do you do that? You have already won. You have now engaged. You now have a dialogue. You now have someone interested in you. How wonderful is that? It doesn't have to answer, why does the world exist? It just has to represent your brand well. And if it has the added benefit to get people to want to know you better, yay! So I'm a proponent that a little bit of mystery isn't terrible. Okay, let's go on and okay.
I have a quick question for you, Paula. Sometimes you hear people, I guess, try to be kind of cute and clever and come up with some kind of almost like a moniker about themselves. I'm the fairy godmother of so-and-so, or
Okay,
some
I have a great
stuff-
answer for that. And thank you
Please.
for bringing that up. I got to tell you, colloquial sells. If you have the right personality to say, I'm the fairy godmother of the da da da, and it's descriptive enough so people are not confused, that is something that's very memorable. I'll give you 2 examples. I go to a meeting. This man comes up to me, goes, Paul, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. He puts out his hand and he says, my name is Dan Nye. I'm the banking guy. Now that one's still, everybody knows, Bill Nye, the science guy. This is a riff on that. This is, I'm Dan Nye, the banking guy. But he has the jovial personality. He's actually now, I've met him a long time ago. He's now a president of a bank here in town. And he's been using that for 30 years. So if you have the right personality and if it's descriptive enough, then yeah, do it. And now if it makes you feel uncomfortable and you feel it's corny, then you can't do it. It's got to be, okay, here's one of my favorites. I'm in the airport and I'm sitting next to a guy, I was born without the shy gene, so I'm talking to everybody. And I talked to a man and he says, tells me his name and he says, I cover the asses of the masses. Ooh, I don't know what that means. And so I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And he goes, I own a manufacturing company of men's underwear. And he covers the asses of the masses. Okay, he gets away with it. It's a cool thing. It's different. It's nobody else is going to say that, right? So colloquial is great if you can pull it off and it's descriptive enough. Zoe, can you put out that handout now?
Sure.
Okay, the handout that's coming to you in chat, if you want to pull it down, is all the rest of these slides. And this is a how-to. How do you do this for yourself now? Step 1, know yourself, right? This is seeing the forest from the trees. So if you have one of those detail professions that we talked about, you're an actuary, you're an accountant, you're an engineer, you're a data developer, whatever, this will be a little harder for you because you got to see the big picture. You got to stand up above your career and see the forest for the trees, because this is, the summary, the distillation of your professional career. I suggest, if you can, to do it with a partner. It works if you don't, but if you can, do it with a partner and talk about the patterns of your successes across your career, maybe 6 successes or 6 accomplishments. That's how I distilled John. Remember John? He said, I'm a commercial real estate guy. He was way more than that. He worked for Starbucks. He worked for Nike. I put those 2 things together and I said, you're $1 billion on the back of old-fashioned brick and mortar retail. So if you can tell some success stories that will help somebody pull the thread through and see who you are as a professional, or a 360-degree perspective. Think about a really big, important task you completed, job you fulfilled, project is done. What did your boss say about you, or what would she or he say about you if he was asked? What did your coworker say about you? What did the person or persons on your team say about you? What did your external business partner say about you? What did your internal client say about you? And if you can build a 360-degree perspective about what people think of you, you could very well land on what your essence is, or what your shining star is for your Art of Hello introduction. What do your fans say about you? I guarantee this. If you've worked more than 1 or 2 years, you have fans. These are people who come to you because they recognize that you have good answers, that you have experience. They come to you because you're caring enough to give them a careful answer. They come to you because you have helped them in the past, or they know your expertise. What do your fans say about you? And finally, what is your biggest, baddest accomplishment? Think about it, talk about it, and maybe that. There's something else here that can make it very easy. When I work, I answer the question. When I work, I, and think about what you deliver when you answer that question. And that could be your Art of Hello introduction. And then all you have to do is tweak out the words, make it short. I love 5 words. I like 8 words. Don't like 15 words. Whenever anybody sends it to me and it's 15 words, I'm like a demon. I can make that 8 words. It's like a game show. Second, this is just for your reference. These are the 7 archetypes. Don't start on this page going, I'm going to write one about the essence of who I am, or I'm going to write the one about the biggest, baddest, whatever. This is kind of the fun day. This is the fun piece of the deck. Oh, I see what mine is. Mine's my repeated successes. And these are all the people that I've just introduced you to. Then build your pillars. Your pillars are your credentials, your notable. I'm sorry, this keeps jumping around on me. Your pillars are your notable successes. They can be targeted to your audience. They're your credentials. They add out or fill out your professional brand. This is going backwards. Then test it. So the first one is your gut check. How does it feel? And this goes back to Ken's question. I'm the fairy godmother of such and such. Well, can you live with that? Can you say that about yourself without getting the gag thing going? And if you can, I'm good with that. How does it feel to you? Your gut check. Your second is your Casbah. Is it clear? Is it actual, specific? Is it brief? Is it authentic? Is it honest? If it passes those tests, then you're onto something. And your last test is phone a friend. You call a friend and you say, hey, I'm trying to introduce myself in such a way that I'm going to be remembered. I'd like to use this, tell it to them. And does that represent me? Ask them, is that the person you know that I am? And then say, can you repeat what I just said? And if they can repeat it verbatim after hearing it once or twice, you might be really onto something. So I'm going to ask for last questions or comments. We're about to wrap up.
We did have one other question in the chat, which was just a clarification on the 7 to 10 words. Does that include the IMA or I help part of it? Is that part of the 10 words? Oh,
you know what? You really have some variations there. What you want is, what I want people to remember, fill hard to fill positions. That's what I really want people to remember. Now, if it's attached to my name, great, right? That's a double whammy. But I want people to know what my value proposition is, what my brand promise is. So, you got some leeway over the my name is or I am a, that's going to either be remembered or dropped off or left on. I can go either way on that. So guys. Yeah.
And Paula, first of all, I mean, amazing presentation. Totally lived up to maybe exceeded my expectations. But it strikes me that a lot of times, and we see this in resumes too, people just want to get everything out because everything's so important, or I don't know what's going to really click with them, so I'm going to throw it all out there. And I was thinking with each of the revised ones that you gave, kind of like my feeling is, oh, I want some of that. I want that. That's what I want to have happen to me. And to your point, obviously, it's going to be memorable. So yeah. I love this approach.
Thank you, Ken. So you remember me, I'm a recruiter. I feel hard to fill positions. I'm a speaker. I don't take any personal pay for speaking. I speak at other organizations, professional organizations, keynote addresses, and inside companies. I'm a connector. I would be very pleased to be invited to your LinkedIn networks. And I've written a book called The Art of Hello. You can get it on Amazon. The last thing I ask is that someone, Ford or Ken, or maybe one of the other guys, if you don't mind putting a quick thank you on LinkedIn, I would appreciate it. And Zoe, are you in a position where you can get a screenshot of us just the way we are now? Because I would love a screenshot with some of you and this in the background or something like that. I'm going to let Zoe work on her magic for a moment.
I think if I make more of the people visible.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Here, let's go. There we go. All right.
Yeah,
Paula, I was going to
smile.
I'm going to write something on LinkedIn. Shall I write it in your as a recommendation? Would you prefer it that way?
Oh, no, just post it. Okay. I collect all the posts for
your
recommendation, but either way.
My pleasure.
I just want that screenshot if Zoe's able to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, if everyone wants to give a quick smile, give me 2 seconds. Let's.
A quick smile.
Okay, why won't it open? All right, we'll try this. All right, smile. All right, that should have done it. Well,
very kind of you. So I see one more thing happened in chat before we go. Is there one more thing, Zoe, that I should address?
I think it was just people singing your praises.
Oh, sweet.
So, all good comments.
Okay, well, thank you all. I am thrilled to be here. And I look forward to our paths crossing again.
Before we all go, this is Ford again. I just wanted to, end the circle by saying thank you very, very much, Paula. We're so glad that we could have you as a speaker. You did a great job. It's really good content. Excuse me, very, very practical. So thanks again. Really appreciate your time and your interest.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.